My name is Jan Keeley, and welcome to the America, Israel, and the World. At this program, we discuss all different type of topics. Everything is a go: politics, communities, the world, the Israel, and American affairs. Before we get to our guest, I'm going to talk a little bit what happened during this week. Up to this point, we have U.S. and Canada meet together for the first time with the new Prime Minister. Trump says that the bombing will stop campaigning with Houthis because they're not going to. We're going to stop bombing them, so they're not going to touch our ships. We'll see. Now, India and Pakistan. Pakistanis, there was an incident. Over 40 people of Hindus got murdered, and now two countries that have nuclear weapons now exchange some fire between each other. Hopefully it will subside. Now, Israel had a lot of fires going on, and the firefighters finally were able to put it down, and our hearts goes with all the first responders. Israel doesn't need any more trouble. They're already fighting wars on 3 different sides. A natural disaster, which is, in my opinion, was not natural. It was done by somebody else. Now, China and U.S. finally going to meet in Switzerland, and hopefully negotiation will stop so we can stop the craziness of tariff wars. Now, economy. Everybody were scaring us that the tariffs going to slow down, we're going to go into recession, whatever that may be. So far, there is a little bit instability, but the market is doing well. I'm a personal believer, whenever market goes down, if you have a little money, buy it. Over long time, you will end up making money. Now, the national advisor to UN, Rubio, is now doing dual role. He's also doing national security advisor for Trump. The only other person in the U.S. administration was Kissinger, who actually held the same role as Rubio right now. Now, we're also waiting anxiously for one beautiful bill to come to Donald Trump so he can sign and make tax cuts permanent, because it will give certainty to the companies, and we can move on with rebuilding and going forward and making money, and the companies can start hiring people. Now, on the other note, obviously everybody heard about Doge and what they're doing. Just a little tidbits, just USAID. Wasted money of yours and my money went into 1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia, 70,000 DEI musical in Ireland, 47,000 transgender opera in Colombia, 32,000 for transgender comic book in Peru, 2 million for sex changes in LGBT activities in Guatemala, 6 million for fund tourists in Egypt, like Egypt needs any more money to do tourism. They have those pyramids, and millions of dollars for EcoHealth Alliance for COVID research. Supreme Court allows constitution of transgender military men. They're banning that, thanks God. California Democrats are now tough, trying to be tough on business, but there is a bill that were introduced to stop selling the people that are 16 or 17 years old. We are to pass that bill, but the Democrats are fighting it because supposedly it's going to be bad for the people who are disenfranchised. In that, I'm going to stop. There's many more going on. And now I'm going to introduce to a wonderful and very interesting man. He is Rabbi David Elzri. He is a Chabad rabbi, and he is almost like, that's why I come up with the name for the show, America, Israel, and the World. Well, Rabbi Elzri is an American. He's been to Israel many times, and he's been traveling all over the world. So very first thing, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So you've been throughout all of the world, and Chabad movement is the biggest movement in the world right
Today
now.
it's the largest Jewish movement in the world. Yeah, we're in over 100 countries, and in certain countries we're the great majority, and in certain countries we play a very important role. But today Chabad is the most vibrant and dynamic element in the Jewish world.
So I just wanted to know, where are we going to have Chabad in Antarctica and South Pole?
I don't think we're online, so we're there. We have a presence in Antarctica, so you don't have to worry about it, because we don't have much of a population there, so we're not really worrying about it. But the old joke is that when they get to the moon and they settle down, there's an old saying that there's two things you find in the world everywhere: Coca-Cola and Chabad. So we're around. We're in about 100 countries. I mean, 2 years ago, I was in Russia. I was in Ukraine in June. Strangely enough, we operate most of Jewish life in both those countries, even they're having a bit of a feud between the two of them, because our job is to take care of the spiritual welfare, Jewish education, humanitarian aid, and to focus on the spiritual and human needs of people.
Excellent. So there is a lot of different domination in Judaism, and Chabad occupies a very unique role. Can you speak to that? What is the differences?
Well, there really is a traditional mainstream of what Jewish philosophy and theology is, which is that we have certain traditional beliefs that go back thousands of years. There's some modern movements that decided to move away from those classical beliefs and create a new kind of theological context. But we believe in that traditional historical belief. But what Chabad does is accentuates a few ideas. Number one, the deeper spirituality, the connection to God, and the acceptance of all people, even people you may disagree with theologically. The idea to make space, to look at it, to make space for everybody, and to accentuate the mitzvah of loving and caring for your fellow.
When you say mitzvah, what does it mean?
The word mitzvah comes from the word, means commandment. That what happened was a little over 3,500 years ago, God came on Mount Sinai and he gave the Jewish people 6 commandments, 613 commandments. He gave all of mankind 7. And non-Jews who performed those 7 commandments, which is having courts of justice, not murdering, not killing, not stealing, not doing acts of immorality, treating your parents decently, basic rules of morality, they live a wonderful and good life. And the Jews, he gave them an added responsibility of 613 commandments, and they're divine commands. Some of them are very simple, like the original 7, but some of them are more, for instance, keeping kosher or observing the Sabbath and many other areas, but these are all divine commands given by God at Mount Sinai to Moses in front of millions of people at Mount Sinai 3,300 years ago.
So I want to explore a little something else. There is New Testament and there is Old Testament. What are the differences? Because a lot of people don't understand that the New Testament is based on something else.
Well, there is the traditional Torah, again, which goes back to the biblical source at Mount Sinai, and we have it exactly the words. It says that when Moses came down the mountain, he wrote a series of Torah scrolls and gave each one to each one of the prophets. I've seen Torah scrolls that are 2,000 years old. The same words that we have in a synagogue here in Orange County or any place else in the world. And when Christianity evolved, it developed its teachings, and they called it the New Testament. But according to classical Jewish belief, it is not part of that revelation that happened at Mount Sinai, and it doesn't have it doesn't have the same uniqueness as the 5 books of Moses, which we call the Torah.
There's something else that is very interesting. I've had a number of times talked to some people and said, why are you choosing people? Why are you so special? I don't think we're special, but we were chosen for certain reasons.
You're not special, but you were given a responsibility. What happened was Judaism had a responsibility to bring to humanity certain core values. For instance, compassion, justice. If we go back 2,000 years, many times people, would think to themselves, it's okay to kill, it's okay to steal. There was pagan societies, the belief in one God, the ideas of monotheism. So Judaism was tasked to bring to the broader world these basic fundamental principles, but at the same time, Judaism didn't encourage conversion. In other words, if a non-Jew keeps the 7 laws of Noach, the basic laws of humanity, which, as I mentioned before, then they have a portion, it says in the teachings of Judaism, they have a portion of the world to come. So it wasn't that you're chosen because you're different or better. It's rather you were given a responsibility, and really we see that much of modern Western society, which is built on Judaic principles, which we see today, the idea, for instance, in America, the idea of courts of justice, or in every dollar bill in this country, it says the word "in God and we trust." Even though in America we believe in the separation of church and state, but certain principles and ideals from Judaism seeped into the founders of this country when they established America as such a remarkable democracy.
Wonderful. I mean, what I love about Rabbi Elzri is because he is my rabbi. I go to the Yorba Linda Chabad. My goal in life is always, every day, learn something new. It doesn't matter what it is, engineering, news, what philosophy. And every time I talk to Rabbi Elzri, I always learn something new. Now, Rabbi Elzri is actually a very modest man. Yorba Linda Chabad did not exist. How did it come to existence?
Well, we came to the neighborhood. We got people that were interested. We built a beautiful synagogue. We have a nice, dynamic, wonderful community of caring people. And it was from the grassroots. It bubbled up from the bottom. But it happened as a partnership between the rabbis and the community. And we built a beautiful center, thank God. So it happened organically. It's really how Chabad is going around the world, which is, there's an old joke. A lot of times you have a congregation looking for a rabbi. Chabad, we send the rabbi to a community and he's looking for the congregation. He finds the people, builds the center, and he works in partnership with them to create a dynamic vision for Jewish life.
Well, just to echo this, today I came early to our synagogue because I study with your son-in-law every Thursday for an hour. He teaches me how the prayers needs to be done because I'm learning. I grew up in Soviet Union. The only religion we knew was communism. And we weren't allowed to practice anything else. Although I know I was Jewish, but in Soviet Union they said it's your nationality. But now it's really not. It's really the religion part of it. We have a lot of history of being certain people.
What was done to Soviet Jewry was their heritage was destroyed and stolen, because after the Communist Revolution in 1917, one of the goals of the modern, new, utopian communist society was to eradicate religion. And they tried to eradicate Judaism, they tried to eradicate Christianity. They were a little afraid to start up with the Muslims. They did to a degree because there was a lot of them. They were a little wary of that. But they closed synagogues, they closed schools, they imprisoned rabbis. I know when I grew up many years ago in yeshiva, when I went to rabbinical school in Israel, many of the rabbis that taught me had spent time. They were rabbis in Russia, and what happened is they were sent to Siberia, and they used to joke around, "Oh, you went only for a year to Siberia. I went for 10 years to Siberia." Why? Because they were the core of religiosity in Russia. So what happened to Soviet Jews is their heritage and their legacy and their knowledge of their traditions was stolen by the communist system. And so we find that they grew up with a sense of warmth and a sense of identity, but they knew very little because Russia would not let them study. There's an old joke that they would have a Talmud class, which is the core teachings of Torah, in a synagogue, but the teacher had to teach in Yiddish, which is a traditional Jewish language, not in English, so the young people wouldn't understand. But the old people, they can still hear the story.
So before we move on to our commercial, I want to echo something. I was a Jew in Soviet Union in Ukraine because my passport says I was a Jew. I never been to a synagogue in my life, but I knew once a year my grandfather would disappear for an entire day, and at the end of the day he would come home and bring matzah. Because for the Passover you only can allow to eat matzah. You cannot eat any bread made with grain.
Yes, so your grandfather was trying to hold on to something he learned from his family and parents, his grandparents, and he was involved in a society that was hostile to that tolerated a little bit but not too much, and he was trying to hold on to those traditions and implant them in their children when it could have been easily that if they would have caught what he was doing, or he could have ended up arrested.
He would have, but luckily all his life he was a barber. So when he told me later when he came to United States, when he went there, he first went to his barber shop and they would put fake beard in the mustache and change his cheeks. So if they take a picture, it's not the same man that came home. But it's a true story.
Yeah, but Russia in communist times was a country of falsehood in many ways. We learned that later on as the Soviet Union fell apart in 1990.
So we are getting close to the commercial, so I really enjoy our conversation and I really learn from it. So when we come back, we're going to explore something else, because we covered the America part and now we're going to cover
the Russian part.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about something else, and then we'll talk about the Israel in itself, how much we spend time helping them, how much you went there and talked about it. So please stay tuned. We're going to go for the commercial break, and when we come back, we will continue our riveting discussion with Rabbi Elzri.